Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? Welcome to Renegades React. We're going to be watching some film theory. Yeah, The Martian, I think, is one of the best films of last year. I mean, I watched it and was just in awe the whole time. I mean, the music, the imagery. Yeah, the science is a little bit off in some ways, from what I've heard, but for the most part, it holds true. And I was going to say, if there's anyone here who loves the science.
I mean, I kind of do the science for a living, so.
Yeah,
why not?
It is his job to do the science.
Job and hobby, as it turns out. So, you know.
Well, yeah, okay. And, hey, I was going to say, if you love your job.
It's true.
There you go. I mean, heck.
If you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah, and he loves his job. So, hey, he's living the dream, everyone.
Yeah, there you go.
And, film theory, Matt Pat, him doing game theorists and everything, when he started doing film theory, it was just like, okay, how seriously is he going to take it? And then I've watched a few of these, and they are tremendous. I mean, his Ant-Man one, which is right down there, is tremendous. I love the depths that he goes to in that, with quantum mechanics and everything.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, whoa, just beyond me, the amount of research he goes into for that. This, on the other hand, because in the beginning, when I heard about The Martian, I'm like, oh gosh, this is going to be scientifically inaccurate.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I was expecting.
And then you find out that the guy who wrote the book actually worked with NASA scientists to figure out everything. And even though discoveries were made later, I've heard that a lot of the science that happens is still plausible. That's in the book. So Matt Pat's going to walk us through this, and we will take a gander at what film theory has to offer.
Let's see what he's got.
Let's go.
So NASA finds that water exists on Mars the exact same week The Martian comes out. A movie, mind you, that features NASA very prominently. Coincidence? I think not. But hey, that's just a theory.
Aliens.
Good times.
Yeah,
White or gold.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Film Theory, where today's episode promises to be crappier than usual. But that's got nothing to do with the relative lameness of the puns we're using today. It's because we're talking about The Martian. And no, that's no judgment on the movie. It's just full of poop. Poop science. Poop science that we're gonna pick through to find the truth. Then flush and wash our hands, since that's the sanitary way to go. So what are all these rectal ramblings about? Well, the film is all about an astronaut named Mark Watney, played by Matt Damon, who gets severely injured during a massive dust storm on Mars. His team believes him to be dead, and to save themselves, evacuate the planet, escaping the storm and returning to Earth. As you do. Fun fact, this is one of the most scientifically inaccurate parts of the movie. You see, the Martian atmosphere is only about 1% the thickness of Earth's, meaning that its winds would pack much less of a punch. The absolute worst storms on Mars, the type that only occur once every 5 years or so, wouldn't be enough to register as a Category 1 hurricane. That might be enough to knock you over if, I don't know, you're not paying attention, but it surely isn't enough to tip rockets over or rip satellite dishes off of buildings and impale them into unsuspecting Matt Damons. But hey, it's just a setup. A movie setup. We'll let it slide. Anyway, the not-so-shocking twist of these first 5 minutes, since the movie just started and Matt Damon's face is all you see in the movie's marketing, is that, surprise, he's not dead.
I didn't know who else was in the movie.
Which means Watney is stranded, alone on the red planet, and must figure out how to survive until NASA can figure out a way to bring him home. And, well, that might be easy in your Star Trek, Firefly, or Battlestar universes. This is hard sci-fi, which adheres pretty true to life, meaning the trip is gonna take a lot of time. So, how can Watney last for over a year on a planet without air or food? Well, let me tell you, on the other side of the spoiler warning. Now, I won't be ruining the ending of the film, or really anything major, but we'll be talking about several of the more science-y story points. If you don't want that sort of thing spoiled, pause this video and go watch the movie. Or better yet, read the book. Or better yet, listen to the audiobook.
At least he was wearing goggles.
Is Audible sponsoring this episode? No? That was the last one, huh? Man, probably could have planned that better. Anyway, Watney isn't just any astronaut.
I'm a botanist.
Which means he has the power of plants at his side. It's convenient,
Okay.
right? Outside of rationing out the remaining food from the rest of the crew, he figures out a way to get the
Jessica Chastain's
nutrients and
chocolate.
water necessary to grow plants in the Martian soil. And not just any plant, potatoes. And this is what I want to focus on today.
Robert
the
Plant.
science
I
around
didn't notice
growing
that.
and living off of potatoes on Mars. Because seriously, there is no way this can work in real life, right? I mean, I was sitting there in the theater watching these scenes and thinking to myself, oh man, I can't wait to rip into these with some real facts. So alright, here's my chance. Let's break it down. First things first, living off of nothing but spuds and a small ration for over 400 days. It seemed absurd, but believe it or not, you can survive off of nothing but potatoes. Sam Gamgee once pointed out that the potato is a very versatile food. You can boil them, mash them, and even stick them in a stew, but even he would be surprised to find that it goes way beyond that. Potatoes are actually pretty high in almost everything the human body needs to survive,
true.
save
Yep.
for vitamins A, B12, and E, as well as calcium. In fact, a man named Chris Voigt, executive director of the Washington State Potato Commission, because potatoes have rights too, damn it, went through 60 days of eating nothing but potatoes just to prove that it was possible. And oh yeah, it was possible. But as his blog entries show, you're not gonna enjoy yourself. You should read these things. By day 3, it's obvious he's already starting to kick himself. Quote, I finished day 3 last night. I have to admit, it has finally sunk in that I'll be eating just potatoes for 57 more days. Oh yeah, you will, buddy. And the deeper and deeper you go, the more desperate it becomes. Here's the rub though, he was eating 20 potatoes a day. Some mornings for breakfast, he was eating between 2 and 4 pounds of hash browns. Watney, at his leanest, is doing a single potato a day. It doesn't seem like enough, right? And honestly, it isn't. A medium potato is giving your body about 163 calories, when a man like Watney needs around 2,000. But it's not as bad as it might seem. Remember, Watney is on Mars, where the gravity is 1/3 of what it is on Earth. So, while he's still doing a ton of work each day in his efforts to survive, he's having to spend much less energy to do that work. Add to that the small amount of rations he's allowed to eat, and the fact that his fellow teammates left behind pills, most likely including some vitamin supplements, and it's not hard to believe that he could survive on this diet. Long story short, can a man live on bread alone? Yeah, he can, for about 6 months, then he dies of scurvy. Can a man live on potatoes alone? Surprisingly, yes, better than bread. As long as you give him the occasional Flintstones chewable, he's good to go. So alright, round
you
1
go.
goes to The Martian.
All
It's in
right.
my cap to you, movie. But we're not done yet. What about actually growing the potatoes in Martian soil? Well, the first issue would be Mars's distance from the sun. The planet is 1.5 times further from the sun than Earth, and gets 60% of the light. So plants would grow much slower as a result. But the bigger issue here would be the nutritional deficiencies in the soil. Unlike Earth, where bacteria fixes nitrogen from the atmosphere, making
Yep.
the soil much more conducive to plant life, Mars doesn't have that benefit. But lo and behold, the uncontested best botanist on Mars has a solution for that problem too. Poop. To help fertilize the soil he gets from the surface of Mars, Matt Damon uses his own feces as manure. He even goes out to the back of the structure he's staying in and reclaims
Jeez.
all of the feces his crewmates left before they evacuated. Evacuated. Probably more accurate to say after they evacuated, before they evacuated. But okay, seeing this, I was skeptical. If this is really such a good idea, why don't we use our bum brownies as manure here on Earth?
Bum
Well,
brownies.
surprise, surprise. We do.
Yeah.
Now tell me, are you
Yeah, we
grossed
do.
out to know that someone else's excrement has been all up in that carrot you currently have stuck in your mouth? By the way, good on you for being healthy. And that, loyal theorists, is why you wash your food. In fact, using human feces like this started thousands of years ago and was called night soil because the feces was collected at night from cesspools and outhouses to be used during the day as fertilizer. Nowadays, it has the much
squish.
more scientific and hygienic name, biosolids. In fact, as of 2013, 55% of U.S. sewage solids, aka your butt butter, was turned into fertilizer. And farmers want more. These people are making money off of your
We will
poop,
take
and you're
your-
not seeing a cent of that. I mean, at least YouTube gives us a 55-45 split when they sell the crap that we produce. Alright, that said, in all seriousness, Matt Damon would have faced yet another problem with this. See, biosolids are heavily treated human feces. The raw stuff is rarely used as manure because every human carries pathogens, things that make you sick. Think viruses, bacteria, parasites, Adam Sandler films. Humans are immune to their own pathogens, but the pathogens of others can be very dangerous. And this isn't just a case of being careful while handling someone else's poop. If pathogens exist in the soil that a plant is growing in, they can be transferred into the plants. So using his crewmate's excrement would have been disastrous for Matt Damon, had space not once again saved the day. Watney is on Mars, meaning that the feces left behind by his crewmates was freeze-dried and then exposed to the near vacuum and sub-freezing temperatures of Mars's atmosphere. As a result, the pathogens would have been killed, and Watney would be just fine. In the words of Jeff Goldblum,
life finds a way.
So in this episode, I'm batting 0 for 2. The science around our turd tubers, our poop potatoes, stacks up almost 100%. Notice, though, that I said almost, and that's because there's still one fatal flaw here. A flaw that I can't really blame the author of the book for not addressing, since this fact was discovered after he had already written the story. You see, loyal theorists, in May of 2008, the Phoenix Mars lander performed the very first ever wet chemical analysis of the dirt on the surface of Mars, and found that roughly 0.6% of Martian soil is made up of perchlorate. Don't worry, you're not supposed to know what that is. In fact, NASA, when they found it, even had to look it up. Perchlorates are basically salts that are capable of disrupting the body's metabolic systems. They interfere with our ability to absorb iodine, messing with the production of thyroid hormones and potentially throwing off mood, appetite, temperature, sleep, and more. Messing with hormones, never a good thing. I mean, perchlorates are used in some rocket propellants. So, you know, maybe not the healthiest thing for humans to be consuming in large quantities. In fact, it's also the reason we recently found liquid water in the sub-zero temperatures of the Martian surface. Like we mentioned at the top of the episode, you know how salt water requires colder temperatures to freeze? Well, the same principle holds here. Perchlorates are the salt, acting as a sort of antifreeze and lowering the freezing point of water, hence liquid water on Mars. But this is why it matters in the context of the Martian. Long-term exposure can result in much higher chances of developing thyroid cancer. And though 0.6% might not seem like a lot, it's well above Earth levels and far beyond FDA-regulated amounts, which means I win, right? I found my scientific loophole. Matt Damon would have died, wouldn't he? Or at the very least would have been at risk for some long-term health defects, right? Well, to determine that, we need to first figure out how much Martian dirt Mark would be inhaling and see if he reaches toxic levels. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, a typical human between the ages of 1 and 20 consumes 100 milligrams of dirt a day. For Watney on Mars, with 0.6% of that being perchlorate, that's 0.6 milligrams of perchlorate a day. And since the potatoes are planted in the stuff, they'll absorb a bit from there too, so he'll consume, say, rounding this out to aggressively 1 milligram of perchlorate per day. Multiply that by the 500 or so days he's consuming the stuff, and honestly, he's still in the clear. According to the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, tests were done on healthy volunteers who took 35 milligrams of perchlorate every day for 14 days and 3 milligrams a day for 6 months. Both groups absolutely fine. And by our calculations, worst case scenario, Watney would be consuming 1/3 of that amount for 3 times the amount of time, so presumably he would be okay. And that extrapolation of the data is supported by longitudinal research. Long-term studies looking at similar levels of exposure over the course of years showed similar results. No effect. In other words, it would take a lot more of the stuff over a much longer time to start affecting the thyroid. And if all else fails, here's the kicker. Even if these were immediately toxic levels of perchlorate, there would be a really easy solution to it. Wash the dirt. Seriously, simple as that. Wash the dirt. Soak the soil in some water, let the perchlorate dissolve, pour the water out, and then boil it to reclaim the water. Remember, it's just salt. Watney's biggest threat would just need a bath. In conclusion, try as I might to science the shit out of these scenes, to find a reason why this absurd premise of planting potatoes in Mars would obviously kill Mark Watney off, the Martian did its homework from every angle. The potatoes, the fecal fertilizer, even the deadly salt, all explained away. These farming scenes are pretty darn airtight, which is good since Watney is out there in the near vacuum of space. And you know what? I'm okay losing this one. It's refreshing to see a piece of science fiction pay attention to the real world science.
It's true.
So good on you, Martian. Or the Martian. Your science gets the theorist stamp of approval. I guess you could say that the Martian's crap science isn't crap science. But hey, that's just a theory. A
check on those
film
potatoes.
theory. And cut.
Well,
Yeah.
now I can see why why NASA's so adamant about colonizing Mars. It's possible.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I mean, everything he brought up, completely valid points
Yeah.
on both sides. I mean, perchlorate's, yeah, basically a salt. If I'm remembering right, perchlorate's mildly explosive. So,
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
I could be misremembering that. There's a lot of chemistry going on up in here. I'm not sure I remember everything perfectly.
Yeah, it's boiling as gray matter.
But yeah, I mean that explains a lot about the finding liquid water, because road salt, if you're anywhere where it actually snows, like here, oh boy, road salt will lower the freezing point of water because the ions interfere with crystal formation.
Yeah.
However, road salt does not work past a certain temperature. I can't remember the exact name of the equation. It's been quite some time since I've seen it. But there is actually an equation to determine how much a given ionic compound will lower the freezing point or raise the boiling point of a liquid.
Okay.
But yeah, everything there works. The only thing that sort of irks me there is the viruses. But even then, the flash freezing causes the formation of water crystals, which tends to destroy cellular structure, the structure of a virus itself. So yeah, probably fine.
I was gonna say, when I was watching this, when I watched this film originally, it just I didn't have a chance to read the book. I wish I would have, but the film, tremendous accomplishment. Matt Damon did fantastic work. Ridley Scott, first time he's actually made like a really decent movie in a long time. And you can thank him for Prometheus,
or we cannot thank him for Prometheus.
Yeah. And then
we can say, please take this back. Where's the gift receipt?
And then there was Kingdom of Heaven, which, truth be told, wasn't his fault. The studio interfered with the filmmaking on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you gotta say, from all that this pointed out, it just goes to show you maybe Hollywood's gonna start taking movies more seriously.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Nah.
But it is nice to see that somebody out there actually did their homework.
Yeah, that's always something great.
Yeah.
And he's right about the promotion and everything. They didn't show anybody else for like the first few months.
We got
the first few months of the whole promotion.
We got incidental shots of people working at NASA.
Yeah.
Who, by all accounts, barely had any characterization compared to Matt Damon.
Well, they are giving characterization. When I saw
I'm sure they're giving
trailer,
more characterization in the movie itself.
Yeah.
But when you see them in the movie, they're in there for such a small portion compared to what you see of Matt Damon.
Yeah.
They may as well be essentially just background props.
Okay.
For the trailer purposes, anyway.
Oh, yeah, okay. I see what you mean. But, yeah, great cast as well. On top of Matt Damon, they had Chiwetel Ejiofor, Jeff Daniels, Jessica Chastain, Rooney Mara. I mean, Michael Pena. Great cast all around, and did fantastic work. And it gives me hope for it gives me hope for space exploration. I know in our generation we probably won't be able to see it ourselves, but yeah. And there's always a point where I wish we would be able to. I'd love to see like the edge of our galaxy, and I'd like to actually witness a black hole. Not from a safe distance.
Yeah.
From a true safe distance. I mean, I've seen what happens when stars collide with they actually showed it was actually they showed the whole layout. It was like pictures over time. It was the black, you had the black hole, and then you had the star come in, and it made contact, and it like exploded, and then eventually it all just swirled up, and it was eaten by the singularity event. It's just like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's scary. I mean,
that's what happens when you condense space-time down to a very, very fine point.
yeah,
Bad things happen.
Yeah, and you see, that's the thing about quantum mechanics and relativity that scares me. There's still so much we don't understand. We have equations. We have Einstein's equations.
I mean, we have predictive equations, but some of this stuff's really, really hard to observe.
Yeah, and it's hard to observe because we're stuck on this rock. We're stuck on this rock, and until we actually get out there and we experience time dilation according to Einstein's theoretical equation.
I think another part of it is how we observe. For example, the uncertainty principle, regularly referred to as the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, although that's not entirely accurate.
Jesse, we have to cook. Sorry.
So
had to do it.
It states that you cannot know a particle's position and velocity at the same time because observing one affects the other. And the reason for that being, so on the atomic scale, all right, we have to observe through light.
Yeah.
Which acts as both particle and wave. So even in that case, you have to use X-ray microscopes, that sort of a thing. Those bursts of energy that we use to actually see the position or velocity of the particle will cause a change in the other.
Okay.
So by observing, we are affecting the system.
Jeez.
So it could be something similar to that.
Man.
Yeah, because firing enough X-rays at a particle to be able to see its position will change its velocity because you're imparting a force on it.
Goodness.
Yeah. And same thing, by the time, when you observe the velocity, its location has changed. It's rough to wrap your head around.
Dang.
Basically, we'd have to have some way of observing these things that didn't affect the particle itself, and that one's going to be tricky.
Goodness.
Yeah.
That.
But, in some cases, the act of observation can prevent you from seeing other things.
Okay.
So, science.
Science. It's fantastic and frustrating.
Frustrating is a good word for it sometimes.
Dang. Oh boy. All right. So,
but I'm quite impressed with the amount of scientific digging that both the original author and Matt Pat did. I've had my gripes with Matt Pat on occasion, making some claims that just don't quite tie together all that well, although he tries to sell it like they do. Circumstantial at best in cases, but this one was well done. I'm quite pleased.
Well, I was going to say I loved the movie, and I recommend it for anyone out there who hasn't seen it. And also, I was going to say, before I was gonna say before watching it, just realized that certain artistic liberties were taken. The windstorm and everything.
Yeah, that's the one that gets me.
Well, it's a movie setup. I mean, they have to do something that causes separation.
There has to be something to trigger the conflict.
Yes, and plus, it's to truly know what it's like on Mars's surface. I mean, we have our predictions and everything,
and we've got some Mars rovers up there.
Yeah, we've got Mars rovers and everything, but yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to see all that and to see that they use it for a work like this.
Yeah,
and do fantastic work with it. And gosh, before this goes on any farther, I was just going to say thank you all for tuning in. Check out The Film Theorist, and also check out Game Theory, by both of them by Matt Pat. There's a link to the original video down below in the description. And check out Matt Pat's stuff. Give it a like. I mean, honestly, we love this stuff. I mean, we love the Game Theory. We love the Game Theorist and the Film Theorist. Check them both out. And well, until next time, Internet, we will see you later. Peace out.